This is an election between our plan to kill the virus or Biden's plan to kill the American dream.
I see the president winning with a minimum of high 270s.
Meantime, his Democratic rival Joe Biden is home in Delaware.
He's been basically in the basement, and it served him well. He got a lead in the national polls.
A senior law enforcement official is now telling Fox News that the FBI does, in fact, have possession of Hunter Biden's laptop.
This as the FBI says the emails are not being investigated as Russian disinformation. The Houston police sergeant with 41 years on the force shot and killed. The suspect, an illegal immigrant, now in custody.
A former Twitter and Google exec wants his former companies to silence Trump.
Extreme times demand extreme suggestions.
Grace of God, 2 weeks from today, we should know who the president of the United States is for the next 4 years.
By the grace of God. But then there's some states that are saying we'll count your vote as long as it's postmarked by the day of the election on the 3rd. We'll count it within those 3 days afterwards. So the chances of us knowing, I'm not sure if we will on election day.
Well, you got to hope. You got to hope we know.
There's always hope, Brian.
Because the longer it stretches out, the weirder it gets.
Correct. It could get weirder, but I do think it'll be close. And if it's going to be close, places like Michigan and Pennsylvania are under no pressure to immediately turn in a result if it's really that close in the states that matter most. Meanwhile, Griff Jenkins joins us live from Nashville ahead of tomorrow's final presidential debate. Griff, that means you flew out, you got there okay, you were able to unpack, get to your hotel. Were you able to do any reporting once you got there?
Absolutely. Brian Ainsley and Steve, good morning to you. And how appropriate to open this show with country music, because history will come to Music City, and specifically here on the campus of Belmont University, only for the second time. The first time there was a presidential debate here, it was 2008 between Obama and McCain. Now, of course, Trump and Biden tomorrow night. Tomorrow's will look a little like Cleveland in the sense that it'll be 90 minutes, no commercials. It'll be 6 15-minute segments moderated by NBC's Kristen Welker. And here are the topics she has announced. It's fighting COVID-19, American families, race in America, climate change, national security, and leadership. The Trump campaign wanting more of a focus on foreign policy. And of course, what is new of this is that mute button, because for the first 2 minutes after each question, only the candidate asks the question will have the hot mic. Now, ahead of the debate, the president was in Erie, Pennsylvania, making the case for 4 more years and hitting Biden on the issue of fracking. Listen.
The Democrat Party hates fracking, they hate coal, they hate American energy, and Joe Biden will shut it all down. He's going to.
Andy played a clip for the rally-goers of Biden and Harris contradicting themselves on fracking. Biden, meanwhile, was off the campaign trail, as he is all week, but his running mate Harris and former President Obama went virtual. Watch.
We can come out of this moment stronger than before. In times as polarized as these, your vote doesn't just matter. It matters more than ever before.
Now, with just 13 days to go, you've got the candidates on the campaign trail in the battleground states. You've got President Trump and Senator Harris in North Carolina, and former President Obama will be at a drive-in car rally in Philadelphia. And finally, Brian, I'm going to look into this and see if I can report for you tomorrow whether or not Tootsie's is open down near Broadway here in Nashville. I'm just not sure, but I will find out for you.
Just do me a favor. Don't walk by. Go in and stay there a while and make sure the business and the traffic is real and the drinks work.
The drinks.
Will do.
He will. All right, Griff, thank you very much. Griff is there in Nashville because the debate's going to be there a little more than a day from right now. There's an item in the New York Times this morning that says that as Joe Biden continues his debate prep, essentially he's been on a 4 or 5 day lid where he has not really ventured out and done any public appearances. The president has been out and about. During one of his conversations about how to handle the debate tomorrow night, apparently he's been told by some advisors, you know what, because the last one was the way it was, why don't you try a little humor? You got a great sense of humor, try a little humor. Also, one advisor apparently suggested, you know what, maybe at some point you say, if I'm reelected, I won't tweet as much, which you got to figure the president pretty much said, yeah, right, it's working for me. So who knows what advice ultimately Ainsley he's going to take, because he is his own debate coach prepper.
Well, Joe Biden says he's in favor of that mute button. And, the question is, if you talk to your friends, you always ask, or, who's going to win? And no one seems to know. This thing seems to be so close, and this is going to be the last time.
The debate or the election?
The election.
Mm-hmm.
The debate, we're going to get some answers, hopefully. This is a chance this could be the only chance we get answers from Biden, because he is, as you said, Steve, the lid is working for him. He's up in the national polls. He's staying in his basement, they say, or in his house. And he and Kamala Harris are not answering as many questions. The president's all over the place, doing interviews with people that are not even interviewing him. He says they're hostile interviews, like the one with Leslie Stahl. He says that he's been tweeting about on 60 Minutes. But he's out doing the interviews. And Biden's strategy, listen to what Karl Rove says. He says that his strategy, Biden's is working for him. Listen.
He's been basically in the basement, and it served him well. He got a lead in the national polls, and I think they made the decision we'd rather keep the spotlight on President Trump and not keep the spotlight on Joe Biden, because if we go out there, eventually we're going to have to start answering the questions of the press, and maybe eventually the press is going to start asking us some difficult questions that we don't want to answer.
Well, listen, if he stays in the basement, doesn't answer the tough questions, and then the media is censoring stories, the negative stories against Joe Biden, we just have to get through the next 13 days is what their campaign's saying. But Brian, one of their campaign, someone in their campaign sent out an email yesterday saying, we don't want to look back on this moment and wish we had done more. Do you think they're being too overconfident? Will this be similar to 2016? People are wondering.
They want money.
Yeah, very similar to, that's a good point, Steve, even though they got a ton of it. That memo that went out over the weekend that came out that said that it's a lot closer than is being portrayed in the public polls. There is a Florida poll, a North Florida poll, the University of North Florida, big place. It shows that Joe Biden's got just a 1-point lead in Florida. We know that it's closing in Pennsylvania. And we know if steel sharpens steel, the President of the United States is going up against steel. He's going into hostile interviews, he's going to hostile networks, and he's taking on all comers. Meanwhile, the one thing to keep in mind is the so-called Trump secret voter. You want proof of it? Well, take a look at this poll that is now out. When asked this survey, how many Trump supporters feel a need to hide their support? 68% of Trump supporters strongly or somewhat agree they won't put Trump signs in their yard. And by the way, by my account, there are more Trump signs in the yard. 64% of Trump supporters strongly or somewhat agree they will not put surveys out. Now, when it comes to Vice President Pence, only 38%, Vice President Pence, Vice President Biden, former, 38% of Biden supporters agree they would not put a lawn sign up, and 31% supporters agree they won't put one sticker on their car, which goes to show you, if your eyes show you there are more Trump lawn signs, just know that that number would be double had people not fear a backlash from their neighbors or some destruction to their property.
So far, early voting in the United States, they estimate 36.1 million ballots have been cast via not the ballot box, but the mail box. Democrats say they need more than 40% of their voters to vote by mail. And the Republicans on the president's team who are watching the early voting numbers think the Democrats are not nearly close enough to reaching that numbers. So they feel good about the early voting. They should also feel good about what the Trafalgar poll is saying. Back in 2016, Trafalgar poll suggested the day before the election that Donald Trump at that point was leading in Pennsylvania, Florida, and Michigan. And you know what? He won all 3 states. The same pollster is now predicting the same result. Donald Trump will not just win those states, he's going to win it all. Here he is last night with Sean.
I see the president winning with a minimum of high 270s and possibly going up significantly higher based on just how big this undercurrent is. What we've noticed is that these polls are predominantly missing the hidden Trump vote. There is a clear feeling among conservatives and people that are for the president that they're not interested in sharing their opinions so readily on the telephone. If you're not compensating for this, if you're not trying to give them a poll that they can participate in with a lower threshold that would make them feel more comfortable that it's anonymous, you're not going to get honest answers. I think if the president uses it effectively in the debate when a more bipartisan audience is paying attention and put him on the spot, I think Biden might crack kind of like he did in the primaries. And if that happens, well, then the mainstream media is going to have to cover it.
Well, good luck with that. So I think the president's team feel like they've got some momentum going. The polls are tightening. And when you look at the two candidates and their campaigns, the president is barnstorming or airport storming all over the country, and Joe Biden is just quietly sitting on his lead, Ainsley.
Well, I was reading a story this morning. This is an example of why Trump supporters don't want to put signs in their front yard unless they're super bold. In New Hampshire, police are investigating a threatening letter that was sent by an anonymous individual sent to a Trump supporter saying, "I will burn your house down if the president does not concede this election." People are scared of intimidation. They're scared of vandalism, so they don't want to necessarily put it out there that they're voting for him. But to you said, don't count on it. The mainstream media reporting this. That's why the president does tweet. You might not like his tweets. You might not like what he says in some of the rallies, but he feels like the media is suppressing him and won't tell a positive story, so he has to go out there and do that. Yep. Speaking of that, big tech under fire right now in Washington for censoring stories, and our leaders in Washington want to question some of these executives about it. There is a former Twitter executive who admits that President Trump should be silenced. He should be muted until the election. Listen to this.
I believe that the tech companies generally have a responsibility to be neutral. I think in the case of Twitter specifically, it has been a great champion of the democratization of information as well as a strong supporter of freedom of expression. However, we are in a unique and I believe a fraught moment in time with a president who is desperate and he's facing a very difficult situation. I think the time is to mute the president temporarily while votes are being cast right now and until the winner is decided.
Brian?
That is astounding. I mean, I think it's the best thing to do is to let one candidate not talk or use the platform that made you rich and made you important temporarily, even though you're an ex-executive of Twitter. So it was supposed to level the playing field, give people a chance to sound off, but they take some of the most important voices on the right from Charlie Kirk on down, and they shelve them, important newspapers in the country like the New York Post, and put them on ice. And then they want to take the President of the United States and say, we just want to cut you off until Joe Biden can get out of his basement and accept the presidency officially. And Steve, to your point earlier, if Joe Biden does melt down with the 2 full minutes to try to make sense of himself and his policies, I know exactly what most in the media will say. We saw a preview this weekend. Do I feel bad for him? He's a stutterer. When that is not even correct, because Joe Biden may have been a stutterer, but we're just comparing Joe Biden in 2008 and the Joe Biden in 2012. Meanwhile, Ted Cruz sees what's happening in social media, sees what's happening with big tech right before his eyes in real time, and said this.
That is a major escalation from silencing individual Americans to now big tech is telling the media, we have a veto power on what stories you can report on and what stories the American people can hear. If anyone in the mainstream media had even a shred of integrity, they would be outraged at this. Instead, because they want Donald Trump to lose, they will docilely go by big tech's incredible assertion of censorship power.
We just haven't seen, Steve, we haven't seen this before. We haven't seen this with 65 times Twitter has altered the president's tweet, 0 for Joe Biden. No one even put in an exclamation point or a question mark near the Atlantic story, even though it was unverified. The president's taxes story in the New York Times, even though it's secondary sources and they did not tell us where they got those numbers. But we're seeing something happen right now with the New York Post story.
Well, and it's not just big tech, it's also big media. The president sat down with 60 Minutes yesterday. We saw the president yesterday at that rally in Erie say, wait till you see what we did to Leslie Stahl. Apparently, at the beginning of the interview with Leslie Stahl for this weekend's 60 Minutes, she came in and said, "Are you ready for a tough interview?" She asked him a lot about the coronavirus. She asked him about the governor of Michigan. She asked him about Dr. Fauci. At one point, she said during the interview, the claims about Hunter Biden were unverified, and the Obama administration did not spy on his campaign. But nonetheless, after 45 minutes, he looked at his people and he said, I think we're about done here, right? And I think what he's worried about is he's going to be the target of an edit job that makes him look really bad. He apparently complained about the interview all day long. Will he preempt 60 Minutes and release the interview early? Stay tuned.
Yeah, we'll be watching. Last night at the rally, the president did something he's never done before. He said, "You're about to see a Broadway play." He had huge TV screens there, and he played clips of Kamala Harris and Joe Biden saying that they were flip-flopping on fracking, or that we hate fracking and we're going to ban it. And the crowd went wild because that's never been done before. Also, to the stuttering point, we are grateful that he overcame that. He worked really hard, and we're all going to be watching that debate tomorrow, and we'll give you the latest on if the debate's an hour and a half. So a lot of y'all are going to go to sleep. Maybe not, because we're all excited to watch it, but we'll have all of the.
But there's two separate issues. The Joe Biden in 2020 is different from the Joe Biden in 2008. No one's bringing up stuttering.
All right, Jillian has some more headlines for us. Hey, Jillian.
Good morning, and let's begin with a Fox News alert now. A South Carolina sheriff's deputy is killed, and 2 others are hurt after a chaotic traffic stop. Police say it started when a driver got into a fight with deputies. It led to a series of crashes on an interstate in Greenville. Master Deputy Conley Jumper died at the hospital. The 28-year veteran of the force leaves behind a wife and daughter. The injured deputies are expected to be okay. Today, the Senate is expected to vote on a $500 billion COVID-19 relief deal. It comes one day after they voted for more funding for the Paycheck Protection Program. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell is urging the White House not to make a deal with Democrats on a larger stimulus bill. The AP reports McConnell is concerned there won't be enough Republican support. He wants to wait until after the election. Well, the Los Angeles Dodgers.
So much, Jillian. Hey, let me tell you what's coming up straight ahead. Sources tell Fox the FBI is in possession of Hunter Biden's purported laptop. And while they're silent on if there's an investigation, our next guest says one might already be underway. Former DOJ officer Ian Pryor joins us next.
To get the Attorney General to act. He's got to act, and he's got to act fast. He's got to appoint somebody. This is major corruption, and this has to be known about before the election.
Well, President Trump urging the DOJ to investigate Hunter Biden's business dealings right away. As sources tell Fox News, his purported laptop is now in the hands of the FBI. Meanwhile, the agency says it has nothing to add to DNI Radcliffe's claim that the laptop and alleged emails are not part of a Russian disinformation targeting the Bidens. Okay? Here to react, former DOJ Deputy Director of Public Affairs Ian Pryor. Ian, when you see these series of events, the one thing is pretty clear. I don't know what the Russians have to do with a computer repair shop and the owner calling the FBI first, not a politician.
Yeah, look, this is absolute Democrat disinformation campaign is what it is. They've peddled the Russian collusion, Russian disinformation campaign for, years now, whether it's Adam Schiff or Nancy Pelosi or whoever, and they've got a willing group of people that are willing to believe that. Look, I think that we have heard how Donald Trump is a Russian asset for years. The bottom line is Hunter Biden is compromised, which means Joe Biden is probably compromised as well. What else do foreign governments have on Hunter Biden that isn't in his laptop? What's in his laptop? Those are things that all can be used against a future President Biden to compromise him and get him to act against the interests of the United States for his son. That is a big problem. It needs to be investigated.
So social media says they feel, reportedly feel they played a role in WikiLeaks putting out legitimate emails of Hillary Clinton and played a role in the election. Now the social media is looking not to play a role, but no one's doubting the authenticity of the emails. So they are playing a role by refusing to allow the New York Post story to go forward, correct?
Absolutely, they're playing a role. They're playing a role. The media is playing a role by not asking questions, most of the mainstream media. In fact, if you look at the media, they've dug for more dirt on Amy Coney Barrett's school-age children than they have on a son of the former vice president who is running an influence peddling campaign that allegedly, and it looks like it did, involve his father when he was vice president. It's appalling, the lack of interest from the mainstream media and the fact that social media, Twitter, Facebook are censoring this information before an election. It's appalling.
I just don't understand a system in the FBI, if we are to believe the chain of events, where a computer repair shop calls up and says, I got some disturbing stuff on a laptop that was left here and I can't get the owner, believe it to be Hunter Biden. Can you come get it? He's talked to the owner one time, and the owner lost all track. No one ever followed up with him. Does it actually sit on somebody's desk when a laptop concerning international business related to the former Vice President of the United States is presented there? Does it actually sit on somebody's desk, or are they responsible to give it to their superior?
Well, they're responsible to give it to the superior and see where it goes. I think there are one of two things happening here. Either it's gross incompetence, where whoever got that computer forgot about it, decided to do nothing about it, didn't realize the importance of it, or it's something more nefarious. I mean, look, we saw from Peter Strzok, from Lisa Page, folks in the FBI that are hell-bent on not getting Trump not elected, and once he's in the presidency, stifling that presidency. I would not be surprised if there are people still in the FBI with that point of view. I mean, if this computer was taken in December, obviously they should know that this is probably going to be the Democrat nominee for president. And hopefully an investigation has started. It just hasn't come to light yet. But, we don't know that right now.
All right, Ian, we'll keep talking to you. Ian Prior, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, more than 36 million people have already voted in this election. So what does this turnout mean for each party? We're going to crunch the numbers next. But first, before the presidential debate kicks off tomorrow, we ask viewers to pick America's question from our friends at Fox Bet Super 6. And here's the winning question. Quote, how many times will Joe Biden say the phrase, come on, man?
This is an election between the Trump super recovery and a Biden depression. Biden's plan to kill the American dream.
We will not increase taxes for anybody making under $400,000 a year. But what we will do is we will eliminate the Trump tax cut.
A new study revealing Joe Biden's Social Security plan would eventually raise taxes for more than just high-earning Americans making more than $400,000 a year.
But there are conflicting reports on the economic impact. So what's a real story? We're asking business and economics professor at the King's College in Manhattan, Brian Branbrook. Brian, great to see you as always. Let's take a look at these competing headlines. The first one says Biden's Social Security plan would eventually raise taxes for more than just rich Americans. Study finds. That same study finding this title. Biden's Social Security and SSI plan would lift 1.4 million out of poverty. So walk us through how taxes for more than just the rich are ultimately going to go up under the Biden plan.
Yeah, well, Todd, what you have to look at is the long-term picture, not just the short-term picture. So often in these debates, the candidates say, this is what I'm going to do and this is what I'm not going to do, but they don't play the story forward. In the case of Joe Biden, you've got to play the story forward. You've got to look at his spending plans, and then you have to look at his tax plans, and you have to compare the two and say, is there a gap between what he wants to spend and what he wants to tax? And if there's a gap there, then the question is, how do you plug it? And what these studies are finding is that the way you're going to have to plug the gap, if you're going to pay for it, unless you're going to increase debt massively, the only way you can pay for it is by raising taxes on more than the quote-unquote rich. You have to raise taxes on the middle class. So that's what these studies are finding. That's what middle-class taxpayers have to pay attention to. It's not the headline numbers. It's what happens down the road when the policies actually get enacted. And that's where the middle class ends up on the hook with Joe Biden.
Can you also talk about this? Because this was in your notes that you sent earlier, and I thought it was really interesting that according to economists at the Hoover Institute, this tax plan, in addition to the Green New Deal, would actually result in millions of fewer jobs in this country.
Yeah, well, you have to look at what higher taxes do to businesses and hiring. So Joe Biden is talking about raising the corporate tax rate. He's also talking about raising the top individual income tax rate. That tax rate hits many small businesses who actually pay that individual rate. About 40 million Americans work for small businesses where the owner pays that individual rate. So when you increase that tax, when you increase the tax on businesses, they respond. They have to decide, where are we going to put our capital? Are we going to hire more people or not? Again, if you play that story forward, what you find is when the taxes are higher, businesses have less money available to bring new workers in. That reduces jobs. That reduces incomes. The key here is don't just pay attention to what the candidates say in their headlines. Pay attention to how the story plays out. Right. Economies are dynamic. A move over here affects a move over here, and that's where it really hits middle-income America.
Brian, quick question here in the 10 seconds we have remaining. Assuming Biden's tax plan is put into place if Biden wins, will any of us, you, Jillian, me, any of us talking right now, get Social Security at 100%?
Not the way it's playing out, Todd. Okay. We have no plan on the table where we get Social Security at 100%. So you better put your own money in the bank if you want to retire well.
Happy Wednesday. You're not going to get your money. Sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but it's important. It's an important point to make.
It is.
Brian Branberg, professor. We
really
appreciate
is.
it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
You too. And overnight, out-of-control protests send a police officer to the hospital in Rhode Island. Rioters launching fireworks as tensions escalate over a man injured in an officer-involved moped crash.
Justice for Jamal! Justice for Jamal! Justice for Jamal! Justice for Jamal!
Police arrested 19 people in Providence. The injured officer and a canine are expected to be okay. Jamal Gonzalez is in critical condition. Witnesses say the officer rammed into him. The crash is under investigation.
Mouthwash may help lower the spread of the coronavirus. A study by the Penn State College of Medicine found certain oral antiseptics inactivate 99.9% of the virus after using it for just 30 seconds. Now, this test was not done on the strain of COVID-19. Keep that in mind. But scientists say the novel virus is genetically similar to the other human coronaviruses tested.
Interesting.
I have no idea how to transition from mouthwash and coronavirus to Janice Dean. So I am not going to try. How's the weather, JD?
I love mouthwash. Hey! Mouthwash is very important in the morning.
That's a true pro right there. That's a true pro.
Thank you. I'll be here all week.
There you go.
Listen, we had record snow across the upper Midwest yesterday, double digits in Minnesota. Pretty impressive. So we have more snow on the way. It's not over yet, my friends, but certainly the earliest huge totals for parts of Minnesota in October. There's the satellite radar imagery, and you can see where we had that snow move across the Midwest and the Great Lakes. We have another batch moving in, and that's why we have winter weather advisories for the Northern Plains, Northern Rockies, in towards the upper Midwest again. So we're not done yet. Round 2 is on the way on Wednesday, today into Thursday. Some measurable snow totals in some of the same areas that got that record snow yesterday. So there it is. Snow is coming early across the northern tier of the country. There you go.
Oh, gosh.
I mean, that is the proper reaction. Yeah. All right, stay right there, JD. You'll like this next story. It's a great story. Okay. After covering those California wildfires for months, right? A firefighter reuniting with his daughter in an absolutely heartwarming video.
Oh my God! Hi, mamas! How are you? I missed you. I missed you.
Oh, goodness. San Jose firefighter Josh Padron surprising 10-year-old Eliana after a month away from home when he was fighting wildfires. And Janice, we wanted to bring you back in for this one. Your husband being a firefighter, obviously, I mean, that emotional moment there, I mean, we all feel that watching it. It's just incredible.
And those guys this year, wildfires have been terrible across the West, and they have been working day and night, 7 days a week. So what an incredible video. God bless all of the first responders doing that work out there.
Yeah, it's incredible work.
Just so beautiful to see that right there. And like you said, you know, they're basically fighting a war. They're fighting a war of flames, and, you know, their life is on the line. And so you see that sort of natural reaction there from that daughter. You understand it.
It's a calling, though. They feel that they need to do that. So for him, it's very important. And the families, I mean, they have to understand that for those guys, that's what they want to do. They want to save lives. I mean, listen, it's hard to fight back the tears here because I know what that's like.
Oh.
Yeah.
Janice, thank you for sharing your thoughts on that. Tell Sean we say hello, as always.
Of course. I will. Love you guys.
Love you too. Good stuff.
It is 37 minutes after the hour now.
President Trump slamming CBS, accusing them of being fake and biased. The president tweeting in part, quote, "I am pleased to inform you that for the sake of accuracy in reporting, I am considering posting my interview with Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes prior to airtime. Everyone should compare this terrible electoral intrusion with the recent interviews of Sleepy Joe Biden." The president also sharing this video showing Leslie Stahl not wearing a mask in the White House.
The Avengers are standing by co-star Chris Pratt, the actor noticeably absent from a virtual event with Kamala Harris, leading to speculation it is a result of his political views. Mark Ruffalo tweeting in part, quote, "He is just not overtly political as a rule. This is a distraction." Robert Downey Jr. writing, quote, "He just married into a family that makes space for civil discourse and, just plain fact, insists on service as the highest value." Pratt married the daughter of Arnold Schwarzenegger and Maria Shriver in 2019.
I think that is a very good thing to see in our cancel culture. That was an important development right there. And there's this development. Rapper 50 Cent doubling down on his support for President Trump after calling out Joe Biden's plans to raise taxes.
Cheryl Casoni from our sister network, Fox Business, here with the rapper's latest dig at the Biden proposal. Cheryl?
Yeah, guys, good morning. Yeah, rapper 50 Cent is backing President Trump, saying that his wealth would be cut under a Joe Biden presidency. In a tweet, 50 wrote, quote, "Yeah, I don't want to be 20 Cent. 62% is a very, very bad idea. I don't like it." What he's referring to is to a report that New Yorkers could face a combined federal and state tax rate of 62%. Now, Biden supports raising tax rates for corporations and on people making $400,000 or more. He also made some colorful comments, 50 did, about leaving New York since the Knicks never win anyway.
That is very true, but I find this whole situation fascinating. It's going to be interesting to see if this impacts the vote in any way. Meantime, Mickey's mad.
Mickey is mad. It kind of has good reason. The state of California has released new guidelines that would allow theme parks like Disneyland to open, but it's not going over well with park officials. The parks can open with these modifications. Park capacity limited to 25%. Reservations or advanced ticket sales are required. In addition, the state says that counties where the parks operate must be in a yellow tier. Well, right now, those counties are in a red tier, which makes reopening impossible for Disney. Disneyland president Ken Patchak, said in a statement that the state has mandated arbitrary guidelines and knows are unworkable. He said these guidelines will keep them closed for the foreseeable future. We could be looking at summer of 2021 unless things change.
Interesting. Tesla's got to watch its back, apparently, huh?
Yeah. Been dormant since 2010, but we are going to get more on this from GM President Mark Royce. He's going to be on at 7:45 Eastern Time. He's joining Fox and Friends.
It does look cool.
Yeah, we'll see what he.
Truck.
Well, I mean, the Hummer hasn't been around for a long time, so it's going to be fun to see the new version.
All right, Cheryl, thank you.
Speaking of Fox and Friends, let's check in with Steve Doocy to see what else is coming up on the big show. Hey, Steve.
Is your voice back? Yeah.
Yeah, it is. You know, if you're going to get laryngitis, don't get it on your birthday, because I couldn't sing to myself. It was really...
We'll sing to you. Oh, they're telling us we can't. Sorry.
Thanks.
Later.
All right, Todd and Jillian coming up on Fox and Friends. We're only halfway through a very busy week in Washington. From the upcoming Supreme Court vote on the nominee, Judge Amy Coney Barrett, to hammering out a deal for additional COVID relief. We're going to hear from White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany. She's going to be joining us from the White House. Also, Senators Marco Rubio and Tom Cotton from D.C. Also, Mike Huckabee, Lawrence Jones spoke with voters at President Trump's rally last night in Erie, Pennsylvania, a key county to winning that swing state. This morning, he shares what they're saying about the race to the White House. And Major League Baseball Hall of Fame pitcher John Smoltz recaps Night 1 of the World Series. It happened last night. And Academy Award-winning actor Matthew McConaughey. All right. It's going to share some stories from his new memoir. You don't want to miss that. So we got a busy 3 hours. Kicks off 14 minutes from right now, right here on the channel you trust for your morning news. Todd and Jillian back in a couple. You're watching Fox and Friends First.
Joe Biden is a corrupt politician. And smoking gun emails show that the Biden family sold the vice presidency for a very, very substantial amount of money, more money than anybody would believe.
A group of House Republicans following President Trump's lead, urging Attorney General Barr to appoint a special counsel to investigate allegations against Hunter Biden.
Texas Congressman Louis Gohmert is one of them and joins us live. Congressman, thanks for being here. You are one of 11 calling for the special counsel. Can you tell us why?
Well, because this is serious. It appears that the FBI had the laptop of Hunter Biden. It appears that, you look at the messages. Unlike Pop, which is what they call Joe Biden, you're not going to have to give me half of what you make. That's what Hunter Biden wrote to his daughter. For heaven's sakes, when you look at the deals that are being talked about in the emails with China, there is corruption on a level we haven't seen in, the Clinton Foundation. That's one of the problems with not punishing corruption is you don't get the deterrent effect, which is why you have the Bidens apparently just using the vice president's position, maybe back when he was senator, just for pure corruption. Pay me and we'll be nicer to your company, to your country. It is outrageous. And because we do have a level of corruption and have in the FBI, it is important that there be a special team, and Christopher Wray should have nothing to do with it.
Okay, but with your claims, of alleged wrongdoing as the backdrop, what, if anything, comes of this between now and Election Day, just 13 days away?
Well, it's not going to get done before Election Day. And thank you very much to Mr. Durham, who didn't want to have a political effect, who by doing nothing before the election has had a powerful political effect. So nothing's going to get done in the next 13 days, but that's not the point. This is potential corruption on an unbelievable level, and it's got to be investigated or it's just going to get worse and worse.
Okay. Well, I know you're going to be following it. Keep us updated on what happens. As we mentioned, you are one of 11 calling for that special counsel. So certainly something we will continue to follow. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for staying after it. Thank you.
Of course. And again, all that, information still coming out about this, about the alleged Hunter Biden email. So it's a story that we will continue to keep an update on, keep an eye on, that's for sure.
And again, what makes this so difficult is that there are a lot of facts that we've had difficulty, quite frankly, as not just Fox, but just as a society confirming, because the FBI hasn't necessarily been as forthcoming with confirming things. Obviously, in our business, we have a tendency to need confirmation from official sources, and the FBI hasn't been so forthcoming. So we'll keep you posted when we know information. With that, I think we have a big week for the tail end of our week. There's something coming up on Thursday.
A debate. There is a debate. The final presidential debate that's going to be happening tomorrow night. Fox News is going to have coverage to get you started in the few hours leading up to the debate. And of course, we're going to have an update.